Good afternoon and welcome. I hope everyone is doing well. I'm doing something a little bit different today. Last few days I've been seeing a few people using Inkarnate to make different maps, and then I happened to see today that they had an offer going on where you get 10 days of their premium version for free. And I figured, I am supposed to be a writing and world building VTuber. Might as well go and do a little bit of world building, so I'm gonna try out Inkarnate's map making tools. See what I think of them. From what I've seen, I've been watching Crowned DM making battle maps using Inkarnate, and some really beautiful work in there. And I mean, props to him for the amount of detail he puts into it. I think I'm probably going to go for a world map, all things considered. Not going to be making one for any existing fantasy world. I'm not usually a map kind of person, to be honest. I just kind of keep everything in my head and then write notes down every now and then. Alright, let's have a look. Many settings. Okay, going by what space this takes up, I'm probably going to move myself over to the left side. I'll stick where I am for now, and then we'll see if I need to move later on. Now, as I said, I've watched Crown DM do a little bit of battle map making, and I've seen like 5 minutes of a short tutorial on how Inkarnate works. A very minimal experience. I basically know that you can draw on a map. I know you can adjust this drawing slightly, and that you can place stuff from the catalog, and that's about it. So, let's have a look. That's very pretty, to be honest. Like, even just, I think that probably the reason why Inkarnate is so popular is because it makes it so easy to get a map down that's really good looking. Like, just basic paintbrush tool, and it does little edges for you, and then you can brush the terrain over that. It's fantastic. So, add to put stuff on, subtract to remove it again. Let's get rid of this for a moment. If I get rid of the land and not the highlights around it, how does that work? Okay, no, it gets everything. Good to know. Brush size, yes. Roll drag, always useful. Play all that. Reset this. Let's have a look what we have here. So the edges, circle, right, so back to add. Shape of a brush. Okay, flat circle, and can I control Z? Yes, I can, excellent. And grid, okay. Fill tool. If I draw a circle and fill tool in the middle of that, excellent. What else do we have? Different shapes. Oh, this is all the stuff that is on the top here already. And then a few advanced settings. Mask effects, mask. Dark coastline. Okay. And the brush tool to add textures over the top of things. I'm still going to keep myself in the bottom right corner, but I think I need to make it a little bit smaller. Just so I'm not covering too much. There we go, that ought to be good. Yeah, nothing getting covered up with me there. Okay. Fantasy world, and we have barren lands, core, grassland, ice and snow, lava, and water. From the tutorial, I remember foreground is for land, usually background is for water, and top for everything. Okay. All the text. Paths. Notes and the ritual show grid. Go for different types of. Okay. Alright, let's start designing some land. Something very basic. I mean, I'll probably follow my own advice from my shorts and make something that spirals out from a central location. That being the case, maybe I do want to go make a regional map rather than... excuse me. Maybe I do want to go make a regional map rather than a world map, actually. Have a look. Let's go back. Great. Regional HD. Yes. Medium landscape. Okay, similar enough on the brush here. But I assume different on the catalog. Yeah, different mountains. Slightly more detailed, I think. Makes sense for it being zoomed in. Individual buildings? A little more detailed than I expected for a regional map. Yeah, city size stuff is kind of what I was looking for. Yeah, I think this is a bit more appropriate for what I'm going for. Okay, in that case, let's consider edges of a map. Totally surrounded by water would make this an island off the coast somewhere. Or I just paint, this is the brush, not the... Yeah, or I paint land right up to the edge. I do always enjoy bringing water into any kind of construction, be it in world building or building like singular buildings, you know. Talked about in Minecraft what I want to include water in. So maybe a cut-off coastline and an island, best of both worlds. I do want the coast to be a little more jagged, so I think I need to take this down. Yeah. Hang on, down for small bits, large bits. Okay, maybe one sweep with a brush that's very large, and then another that's a bit more detailed. So rough and a splodge down in the corner. A bit bigger. Not too square, ideally. Yeah, sort of like this. Take a chunk out of there. Maybe split this peninsula off. You can already tell I'm going to spend a lot. Like just from the first few minutes of using it, this tool already seems pretty good. I imagine I can easily spend quite a chunk of time using this. Let's join that back together and then split it apart with the more granular brush I've picked. Yeah, like that. Like that. And then go over some of this coast. This here. I'll leave the bottom a bit smoothed out. Maybe just chop that a bit. Bring it back out. Yeah, that's good. That's good. Okay, then... I really want to just find one setting on this that I like, but it's difficult. This corner at least definitely has to be land. And I think I want coming down the left side. I wanted to go across one side at least, so either the top or the left, which will look better. I could put a few small islands here, and I think they'd fit better here than they would into this, so land across the whole top. Yeah, and then, I don't know, mountains or something, make this stretch impassable. Just because I don't want like inhabited land right by this island. And then have to figure out what goes on it. So this continues upwards, of course, so there's more here and there's more off to the side here. So like this, and then a bit, I guess. I want some inlets and bays kind of thing. Move that down a bit, a little spike there. Yeah, this is better. Actually bring this in the middle here. Yeah. That a little, cut that a little. And then bring that out. Maybe a bit more here. A bit less than that. An indent here, sure, yeah. I need to figure out where the rivers are in this. That's going to be very, very important. Maybe in paths? No. I mean, a straight line drawn in blue is basically a river. Are there any settings over here that have anything? No. Redraw segment. I would imagine, honestly, that I mean, it can't be in objects because you have to be able to earth them and stuff. That's a very large mountain. That's going to need to be scaled way down for what I'm working with here. How big are the cities by default on here? Where's that nice one I saw before? Where? Here it is. Walled city. Okay, huge. Dam scale 100. No. I want cities on this to be like this? Maybe a bit bigger. There should be... If I have a central area that I want to spiral out from, and I want it to be safe in the middle and then get more dangerous outwards, that basically means there has to be a sort of starter city up in this bit here, and then safe-ish area around here, like very safe here, mostly safe here, bit wilder towards the edges of the island, fairly wild here, and then like dangerous on the main continent. So I want one city, two cities, smaller towns. Yeah, that sounds good. So around like this is the kind of size I want. Okay, that's good. We'll keep that as a scale marker for the rest of what I'm doing. Now that is the size of a city. And these are pretty noticeable features. I probably don't need to mess with the coast much more than this, really. Maybe roughen this up a little. Does it look strangely smooth in the middle there? That's nice. And maybe make the brush real small and add some smaller islands off the coast here, like this. And then a few things down here. Those ones are a little too long, I think. Cut those down. I'm not usually one of those draw out your continent plates and figure out the tectonics to decide what's going in what direction kind of people, but I do appreciate the value of it in places, and one of those places is the shapes and sizes of islands. Because it's a lot easier to decide exactly what those little squiggles are meant to look like when you think about how they're meant to fit together. So I remove those again and put in just a chunk of land right here. Maybe not right here, maybe a little over to the right actually. Yeah. So we start off with that, and then think this kind of juts out here, so I want a similar kind of indent into this. This to the right is fairly flat, so let's smush this down. Then, with a bit of a smaller brush, go into here. And let's cut that. Cut that. Just start cutting bits out. And basically, because of the land over here kind of jutting out, I'm going to have this bit follow that kind of pattern of sort of crescent waves coming off from the mainland in this kind of direction. A bit more curved than that. Yeah. And then out of this, we cut the individual islands. Another way there. Come across here. Cut this down. Shorten some of these longer ones. Oh, there we go. That doesn't look perfect, but I think it looks decent. It's a good start. They may be a little close together. I just keep the general shape of what I've got going on, but reduce the scale ever so slightly, like this. The occasional like dot and bit that gets left over and cut off accidentally is actually pretty good for making the whole thing feel a bit more organic. Because there would be small islands and bits of land, and it's much easier to have those be left behind on accident than try to figure out how to place them deliberately. Alright, yeah, I think I do have to cut off this island here just to preserve the indent from the mainland. But overall, that looks good. Alright, then next let's have a look. Brushes. So this is all brushed over in the default one, which is grass dry green. Something a bit more vibrant, I think. Yeah, grass pasture green. And it doesn't, I assume, matter, yeah, if I brush over the ocean, that's not making it any darker or anything, is it? No, good. Yeah, I want this by the coast, I'm gonna say probably a fairly temperate region. Yeah, that changes the whole look of the place immediately. Okay. Temperate, and then what do we actually have to work with? We've got a few different types of grass. Prairie, wild field. We have pavements. We're not zoomed in enough to worry about pavements. The water... Icy, cold, warm. Okay, what is this? Okay, so is that what we're using by default here? I need to switch to a background layer. That's very bright. Very, very bright. We can also go for warm sea. Let me color a bit of the left in here and then do half of the islands in this and see what looks better. I think either way something brighter is good. I'm not going to stick to the default darkness here. But between these two... How well do they blend together at the edges? Reasonably? I think if it were a little more zoomed out, I might go for the rougher kind of sea on the edges and do this in the middle, but since we don't have that much ocean around the edge of the map, I'm just going to paint the whole thing in this. Now this isn't a map for any sort of existing settings, so there isn't really world building to draw from for this. But just at a glance, and kind of the mood I'm feeling today, I think lighter colors, lighter tone. So we'll let this inform what else goes onto the map. And it's going to be fantasy, just because fantasy is kind of my thing, with a lighter tone to it. There probably no lava fields or anything like that. And I think I'll go light on the... Okay. I'll go light on the mountains as well. More forests, open grassland, fairly high amount of roads connecting things and stuff like that, I'd say. Okay. Let's have a look. Is there something I can use as a convenient, like, placeholder? So if I start placing down towns, I'm going to think too hard about where they go. They're just a... What can I use as a stand-in for just put feature here? Sheep. There we go. Tiny. Makes sense. Oh, I changed the stamp scale. Okay, so... one city here, and we spiral out from there, and the terrain gets rougher and wilder as we go outwards. So, around the central city, there'll be a handful of villages here and there. There'll be another major city. Let's actually use the city stamp for that. What scale did I make the previous one? Where's the select tool here? I made that one scale 8. Another city here, kind of in the middle of the island. With the terrain getting rougher towards this edge, this one could serve as kind of a trade hub, gather all the stuff from probably hills, light mountains, mining towns, bring their trade into the middle, and then export it out to the safe areas where there's the farming happening, and likewise they export their food through this town or through this city to the rest. So this will be the capital of this region, and this will be the only other city by dint of being in the middle of where trade happens. And then there'll just be, back to full scale, random villages dotted along the edge, and then a few along like core trade routes. Maybe a town of some slightly greater importance can go along the middle here. Okay. Yeah, Hills, mountains along the sides. Port here. Probably not much more village-wise on this small island. That's meant to be a little bit more dangerous. In fact, 2 is probably even too many. So, 1 on the port and 1 a bit deeper in, and then leave the rest. And then the mainland, which is meant to be much more dangerous than the model I'm using. This obviously being kind of the closest civilized point is going to be the main port of call. And I'd imagine they sail here where there's this island and it's a bit sheltered. So there'll be a settlement there and another, let's say another 2 in the middle here. This I'll come back to later. Okay, now I need to figure out how I'm going to do rivers and stuff. I can draw lines. They get a little bit of a edge around them. Actually, I have gotten sidetracked, haven't I, from looking at the brushes as well. While I do like this and this as the basis, I should probably vary up the terrain a little bit more than just grassland everywhere. So, looking at the options, forelands are the... let's see, how does that look? Wrong layer. Background. Let's paint a little bit of shallow sea over these islands. Yeah. Yeah. That's excellent. So I mean, the stream was supposed to be trying out Inkarnate, seeing if I like it, seeing how good it is. I think half an hour in, I can already confidently say that I very much love this as a tool. Having great fun drawing maps with it. Make that shallow sea, make that on a coast here, and this crossing point. Some more work could be done to blend these edges together and stuff, but I'm just learning the tool. I'll figure out how to do that level of stuff later. And I may extend the shallow sea a little bit around here, just to kind of hint at the idea that this bit of land is kind of derived from the shape of this. So bring that out in kind of a curve. That's a bit too straight. Curve. Like that. Yeah. And a bit here. Okay, just kind of to indicate visually that these are linked. The actual tectonic geographical implications of this being shallow sea from this bit of land to this bit of land, I am not going to delve into. I know enough about tectonics to know that there are implications to this on a map, and to this as well, but whatever, this is a fantasy map. Snow... Roxy, what does this look like? Have a look. Okay, that paints not a full rock land, but like a rocky texture of everything. Reset this brush scale. Transition here into some different terrain and put rocks over the top of it. Rocky, barren, brown. Now if I scale this down, it's just going to change the size of the brush, not the size of the detail on it. Opacity, softness. Texture scale. Ooh. Exactly what I'm looking for. Alright. I might, if I zoom right in, the grass is probably indistinct enough that I don't need to mess with the texture scale on that one. Right, like that's not making any significant difference, it just becomes indistinct at that point. But for this, where there's kind of very visible boulders and rock plates on it, I will want it to be a little smaller. Let's go for 5th, just to start off with. Yeah, that's probably still a little big next to the town, but the map is mostly going to be representative of what's there. It doesn't have to show you exactly to scale. Like if this were like a satellite style map and I had a scale measure on here, then sure, but that's not the kind of map we're drawing, not with, you know, these kind of stamps and stuff. So I just want to make this small enough that it isn't obviously out of scale with everything else. It has to be close enough. We've got some different shades, different types of rock, deserts. Not going to go straight from a grassland into a desert. While I do like the idea of a snowy north, also probably not going to go straight grassland into snow. You can do it if you're making a fantasy map and you've got that kind of wacky terrain, then it's easy enough to justify. And I'm personally always a fan of the look of a mountain range separating two biomes. You do find that in real life, you'll find even deserts bordering rainforests, because the mountain range will just stop dead clouds going across the way. So one side of the mountain has, I believe it's called a rain shadow if you look at a mountain range, and one side is a very different color to the other, because the prevailing wind will blow in weather from one end. As the air rises, it condenses, clouds form, and you get rain on that side of the mountains, and then the other side is left completely dry. But I want to hold back on the mountains here, and we're not really zoomed out enough to have enough land here. I could put a crescent of mountains along here and make it work with that, but at that point I feel like I'm drawing within the confines of a box too much. It's always worth keeping in mind when you have a map like this with the border, and it's not a world map, it's a zoomed in regional map, stuff continues outside the edges of this border. So if you draw something because it fits nicely into the confines of what you've got on this map, when you then later zoom out, if you zoom out, it's not going to fit with the rest of the world. You know, you try to stick the next piece of land above or to the west of it, and they don't make sense together. You also end up with the phenomenon of very square islands and square continents, because you open up a map, you go, okay, I'm going to draw a continent, and then you try to fill the space you have available on your canvas. And of course, the space being a square means even with, you know, features and indents and stuff, you end up with a pretty square landmass. I've tried to avoid that a little here. And, you know, this island is approaching a rectangular kind of shape, but I think with this it breaks out of that well enough. So yes, land to the north, something slightly rocky. Maybe I can overlay these if they've got opacity and such features. Let's also save along the way. Green trial map. If you're ever doing any kind of artistic work, remember to save regularly. Nothing hurts more than losing your unsaved progress. Okay, so I'll rotate the entire plane of textures on. I love the features this has available. Offset. Opacity, there we go. So if I make this very see-through, maybe a little too see-through. Yeah, that's barely visible anymore. 0.8. Then 0.7. Alright, we can gradually fade into it. Because this looks natural enough next to the grass. If we start like here, bring a kind of wavy line up there. We have a fill tool, right? Don't we? So there was an option somewhere. No, there's a fill tool for the mask section. But it looks like maybe not for the brushes. Or here? Nope. That fills everything. No specific fill tool there. I brush any... What happens if I brush rocks in the ocean, by the way? I get rocks in the ocean, who'd have thought? Alright. Pull this up manually up here. All across there. Okay, when I let go and click again, it of course applies a whole new layer, so I actually have to be a little more careful to how I do this. Let's get the whole area I want in frame, and then start off here, bring this in the wavy line up, and then do the whole thing in one go. Like that. And then click again, and just a little further in from where I was before, another layer, and then the last one. Alright, I want to figure out something for this border here because I think this is still a bit too harsh of a transition really. But I do think rocky badland for up here works. Let me just take a drink real quick. Okay. Now how much do I want to justify the transition from grassland to rockland? Not too much, to be honest. I could just take mountains, but I don't want... I might not even want any mountains on this map, to be honest. Or maybe just like a couple up here. A few small ones around the edge, but like, you know, hills, really. Nothing like full-on Alps or Himalayas kind of mountains. More like, oh, the occasional rock poking up here and there. And of course some forests across as well. Forests, I think, are in the stamp tool, not the brushes. Yeah. We've got a few different types. In fact, these are whole groupings. All snow, dead trees, tree stumps, swamp trees. A swampland? Much smaller. Much smaller. This kind of scale, yeah. Some swamplands transitioning into badlands, into rocky kind of areas. That fits the kind of theme of... If I make it a spiral kind of coming out like this in terms of more and less dangerous, and the spiral swings up and ends up here, then grasslands, woods, dense woods, swamps, badlands kind of fits the scale of places your characters probably don't want to be. That's very densely packed. How do I set this up? Because I've seen people... draw forests onto their land, and it was a lot neater. Area? Okay, there we go. So... area, basically the brush size, and then bring the density like a good deal down. The density is a straight up percentage in this case. 100% density, 100% filled with trees. For a swamp, I mean, what do I want there? Like 45? 40%? Yeah, that's mostly okay. Kind of sparse. I want a different grass texture underneath here. Okay, swampy trees, and then we go back to the brush. And what do we have? Grass meadow, grass dry, dirt. Probably overlay 2 brushes. Maybe get one of the grass ones and overlay it with different one. There are more options in the other world types. We don't have to stick to what they've placed into the regional map section. Like how about this? How's this? Good enough. Kind of needs to be a bit darker than the surrounding. With that kind of implication of darker, richer soil. I come back to here, stretch these a bit up there. Yeah? I might want the trees a little smaller, looking at it again. I might want them a little smaller. And if they're smaller, then I think they also need to be less dense. A bit bigger. Oh, this is like a character creator in a different game. You can spend absolute hours nitpicking exactly what you want to do. Okay, so if I want to get rid of these, then I think it's the select tool. Yeah. Can I just hit delete? Excellent. Tool. Okay, these have changed size again, haven't they? 15. Size 15. There we go. This I like the look of. Have the trees go a little bit beyond their area. Okay. And then next to that... a Fantasy Regional... HD... I do find the categories they've got just a little bit funny, like... Okay, abandoned. Sure, spooky places. Babylonian? That's your next category? Babylonian? Beasts and monsters, yeah. Demons, lizard folk, skeletons, spiders. Were-rats. Can't do without your were-rats. Core banners. Oh, banners, that's nice. Some hills, some mountains. Oh, misclicked. Yeah. Also, red dragons fall under and sea serpents are core features. I couldn't agree more. You cannot do without these on a fantasy map. Dark Citadel. Desert, dwarves, eastern, elves, and the elves love bridges, it seems. Ethereal flora. Oh, we could absolutely put a magic forest somewhere. Pits? 3 different types of pits, I love it. Hills. We do have sand dunes. Could make a beach area somewhere, make it a bit deserty. The scale in this place is going to be a little bit off. It's going to be okay enough for a first attempt, but the detailing will need some afterwork. But now maybe I go and fix up the sheep I'm using as props for the moment. So I got the city from here, yeah, walled city. Regular city. can I switch the type of an existing thing? Like duplicate, remove, flatten. No. Doesn't seem to be a switch stamp setting. Lock selection, flatten, delete. And this is just a list of all of them. Okay, just remove it in that case. Bring this one over here. Right, the safe city in the very, very middle can just be a city. It doesn't need to be walled. And then the one that's a bit further out will be the walled city. And then in between, we've got fortresses, forts, 10 towns, and villages. Okay, so town. One town out from the city. The sheep. Do that. Yeah, one town somewhat out from the city. Make it a bit smaller. So you can just Control-C, Control-V the stamps. I'll just grab all the ones I think I might need. I will want fortress, yes. Windmills. Sure. I wonder if there's a farmland stamp or brush somewhere. Ruins, yes. Give me ruins. Give me caves. Various sorts. I think this one looks most like a mine entrance. Ooh. Like the estate. Oh, yeah. Like the dwarven mine as well. I am curious because the default scale appears to be like, if you reset it, the default scale at 100, this is pretty huge, right? Like this is a big stamp for a regional map, right? What have I just clicked? Nothing good. Oh dear. There we go. Okay, so we've got a few different things. Some of these are going to need to be a little bit bigger. Ruins about a city this size. Maybe be a bit more generous. But no, that hurts the scale too much. It has to be like that. Okay. Town gets to be that size. And then, yeah, village. Pretty small. This is about right. You will barely be able to make those out while zoomed all the way out on the map though. If I put a name next to it at a similar scale, is just write village, no need to name it right now. Okay, what are the hotkeys for this? V is select, M for mask, B for brush, O for stamp. Okay. So if I put village under there, that still isn't like super duper visible, but it does draw enough attention to it on the map that you'll notice it and then hopefully be able to pick up what it is. I'm thinking maybe I make them bigger. Maybe I make this map a little less to scale and a little more representative and just make everything a bit bigger. To bring the town up to like 18-ish scale. The walled one is just a bit more hefty, so I think it can stay smaller. This up to about 15, and then this can go to like 14, 13. The ruins are quite small, so we bring them way up. Yeah, I think that's a bit better. Still not anywhere near their default sizes. Like that, and like that. All a little more representative and to scale. Okay, so let's start removing sheep. So this one here can be a village. This one here, also a village off to the side. And then one more village over here. We'll put the ruins over to here for the moment. They'll come in useful later. This goes to the edge here. And then this one can be a fortress. It's quite far. We'll want another fortress over here to replace this sheep. I'm thinking, obviously the center is fairly safe, there's no real need for fortresses. Like the center of the map. The center of the island has the walled town to kind of exert influence. So then we could a fortress down at the southern and northern tips to keep those secure. And then this will just be another village, a larger one than the others perhaps because they act as a port between these two spits of land, but still a village. Is there a hockey? Oh. Is there something a little less than a fortress but a little more than a village or town that I can lump down in the middle there? One of these dwarven things? Dwarven castle? Is there a human castle? Not that you can tell the difference really on the map, but just aesthetic wise. Human town, houses. Yeah, these are a lot more zoomed in than the kind of thing I'm looking for. I am very curious at that point. Oh, there we go, large castle. Excellent, that'll do. I am very curious at that point what the... because we're picking stamps from the Fantasy Regional stamp pack. So what goes into the cities? Okay, so the cities map view is a top-down kind of deal. You're building out the actual roads, putting down individual buildings. That makes sense. But then I still think that for the regional map, having these kind of building stickers is a little... I guess regional kind of... because I'm taking regional to mean, like, if you use the world map view for, you know, the full world, then the regional map might be a country or a county or duchy or whatever in that country. Whereas some of these stamps lead me to believe that regional for these people, for these categories, is something more akin to, like, here is, you know, put down a city and its immediate surroundings. Like, if we take the village stamp, oh, huge at full scale. You know, if this were your village in the center of some desert valley, and then you pop down a few buildings around it, as you kind of see in like a video game style local map, that's the kind of vibe I think they're going for here. Okay, I've got one hotkey at least memorized. That's a good start. Alright, this needs to be much smaller. We go in the middle here. Kind of fortified town, close-ish to that village, and then the rest is a bit more wild. Alright, probably not another village here. Yes, another village around this part and here perhaps. Not so much here. Here one, here one, here one. Quite a lot. And then I use the windmills to represent a kind of farmland, hamlets kind of communities. But then they need to be a lot smaller, really. Expand that. Because the map's going to get really quickly really cluttered. There's 12. Bit of a conflict between trying to make things big enough that they're actually visible and useful from the fully zoomed out view, while making them small enough that you can actually fit everything in. I imagine if I cut this map down, if I removed all this chunk at the top and focused purely on this island as the whole frame, it would work a little better. That will probably come with practice, you know, over time using this and getting used to the size of these stamps and such, and figuring out what works aesthetically. You'll get a better idea for how big you want to make each individual stamp, so that you can both see them and still have enough room to work with. Okay, so 3 or so mines around the site here, which means I'll need some hills for them to be mining in. Okay, so this is the mountain large category, and there's mountain small. No mountain medium? Hills? No mountain medium. Mountains small. Yeah, this kind of thing, but actually I need it bigger. Why is it flickering around as I increase the size? Look at that. Okay, they're snapping to some kind of grid. I do not like that. How do I turn that off? Rotation angle, layer, placement. Okay, there we go. We can place one object with a single click, place multiple objects with click and drag, automatically place either single or multiple stamps depending on the current stamp, and auto select. Okay, so that's if you, depending on your settings, then I assume you can make it so that if I do multiple auto and drag, it places down a variety of mountains as it follows my mouse. That's useful if you want to just pull it across a whole section of your map. And if you want a variety of hills, we can also turn on single mode, click, 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 and it picks a different one out of the set of 8 each time. I will, however, not do that. Automatically select for single placement and don't select for multiple placement. Interesting. Randomize angle. I'll spin them around. Random flip. Oh, we're flipping up and down, not left and right. A lot of tools, and I can definitely see the use for a bunch of them. In this case, though, I'm going to pick which exact mountain I want specifically. So I want one of these. Yeah, turn off that setting. Okay, so now it's sticking to the one I've selected. I don't like these kind of smaller, flattened out ones. I want the very tall, pointy, like this. A bit further down. We've already used that one. Let's have a look at the mountains large category. This is a bit more pointy. That's nice for a whole region of mountains, but not what I'm going for here. Yeah, this one. I just have to make it a little smaller to be more in line with what I've got going on already. Alright. And then we make it much smaller. And I will leave the random feature on this time, as it places a few different mountains along the edge of the island. Do have to shift some of these around a little. They've gone off the edge into the water. Let's squish this one a bit, sure. Move that up, move this down. Bring these over a bit. Nothing super realistic or in fact that good, artistically speaking. Could be made a lot neater and nicer, but it serves the purpose for now. Yeah, so mountains coming down along the edge of this island. Tectonically, this mostly doesn't make any sense whatsoever. If these mountains could be from tectonic plates coming in from the bottom right corner, theoretically, but that shouldn't lead to this kind of island shape or what's going on over here. Yeah, tectonically this entire thing is nonsense. But that is fine. Not BM, no, oh, there we go for stamps. Then we'll go back to the medium stamp collection. Let's get one big mountain, really big, here. And then go right back small again. In fact, let's use this mountain spread they had. Which one was it? This here. To cover some land. Give me a couple more of that specific one. Turn off randomize. Yeah, give me a couple more of those and then turn back on randomize. Put down whatever. Cool. V. There we go. You'll save yourself a lot of pain learning hotkeys in a program like this. Even though it's a hassle and it's much to remember, it makes things so much easier. I've played a few games like Cataclysm, Dark Days Ahead, or Dwarf Fortress, where really the hotkeys are a lifesaver. You cannot play those games without them. And in other programs, it just makes life a lot easier. Okay, let me take another sip of drink real quick. Okay. So we have towns, cities, villages, some forts. We can dot a few more of the windmills around. Represent some farmland. A few more sheep on the mainland, but we'll get to that later. Next, Right. There is a path tool, add paths and routes. And it draws a line like this, which is useful. There's dotted lines and dashed lines, and then segments. Okay, so that gives you a straight line tool. And you can click to add turns. Not quite what I'm looking for though. Why can't I unselect this? There we go. Now how do I turn this into actual roads and rivers? I assume the answer is I pick a different color for it. But I would have hoped for some presets, ideally, that look like either roads or rivers. I might be able to bring some in from somewhere. I'm pretty sure there are import options for this program, both to import like images from to import images for your own custom stamps and objects and stuff like that. And also you can import stuff from other people's maps. But I'm not sure where I might do that here. And zoom filter tool. Not really sure what the filter tool might do. The grid, no. Not sure where to do that right now. So I guess I'm just gonna have to try and make a road color, so kind of lightish brown, just like a dirt path. How's this? Ooh, that's very bright. Turn it down a little here. Move them deeper into orange and a bit darker. Too dark. We've overcorrected. Alright, yes, it's good enough. So there we have a road from there to there, here to here. That's way too straight at the end there. And one here that kind of, I don't want to, here that kind of splits off. Oh, I'm not liking the look of these at all. That will definitely, I'll have to look up some tutorials later on how to do that better. Oh. Like that. We will want a bunch of forest, I think, to break up the landscape a little. The overlap on the shadows when you draw a second line isn't great either. So definitely I think this is not the intended option. There must be some other way to draw roads and rivers. Okay. That's good for a general layout. And it honestly doesn't look that terrible when you're not zoomed in on it. Oh, I have left this mine down here disconnected. That won't do. And as I'm drawing this, I'm thinking this town here, or this village here, probably a little more important than I've given it credit for on the map. This one can probably be upgraded, so let's delete that and bring over the town stamp. Yep. Make it a bit smaller. It's behind the lines. How do I shift it up a layer? There we go. Alright. Yeah, because this one, with the road coming from the central fortified city and then also splitting off down to another village and splitting off down to the fort and splitting off down to the mines, this one definitely shouldn't just be a regular village. That's too much traffic going through one point. That should be a town because it's a fairly important location. The other two villages that are between the city and the mines, they can just stay villages. They're basically rest stops along the way for the resources. And similarly, there's, you know, a chain here of village, fortress, village, and then village across the way, and the bigger fortress on the island. But none of these should see the kind of sustained traffic and trade that would lead to them growing bigger. So I'm happy to leave them as just regular villages. There's one more to connect here. In the inverse of that, do I continue to classify this one as a town or not? I want to say yes, because it is, on the one hand, a through stop from one city to the other, and you could, in theory, with the distances, go directly from these villages to the capital, but I think they're probably still far away enough that the people here will just go to one central place to trade, and then merchants will trade further to the two cities rather than the villages directly. And I'd say that the city probably isn't big enough on its own to host most of the population from this kind of central region, so villages nearby it would grow bigger just by virtue of being next to the population center and having so many more like farmers and whatever coming in from the local regions. So this one should be bigger. Then these windmills to represent farmland can be fairly scattered around the place here in the middle where it's safe and where they ought to be common. And then around here on the edges, I want them to be right next to the settlements and not dotted around the place, because there won't be a random bit of farmland here out in the middle of nowhere. Too dangerous of terrain and stuff like that. Okay, that's good. With all the stuff already on this map, I don't know where I would even begin to try and draw a river in, to be honest. I think I would have had to place the rivers first and then figure out how everything else fits in around them, realistically. So I'm going to ignore those for now. What I will look at is the terrain. I think we can do a little bit of work texture-wise here. Which one is this? This is what I've used for the swamp up there. Yeah, we can look a little bit at the terrain. I think there should be different, not just grassland, over here where the mountains are. And I think we can put a few trees and forests around somewhere, mostly on this outlying region. I think the north probably, yeah, the north and south tip probably could be fairly forested, and I might give them different types of forest as well. So first things first, the mountains. Let's see how that, not this one. Which one is that rocks pattern brush that goes over the top? Brown, brown, that brown. Now, there's one I used earlier that was just like a rock pattern and not actual land under it. That's just the same brush again. Misclicked there. This? No. Though that is a nice shade. I might actually be able to work with that around here. Yeah, bring that along the coast. Yeah, I quite like that. If we want to lean into the kind of magical realism side of things, there's an implication here, a strange one, all things considered, that the wind is coming in from the left and going right and being blocked by the mountains, rather than the wind coming in from the sea, which is kind of weird. Alternatively, something about the wind coming in from the sea is just making this fairly inhospitable, and therefore it's not got a lot of growth on it. Or maybe these mountains are just really, really barren soil. Either way, I am not finding what I was looking for. Where did that rock brush go? Did I grab it from somewhere else? Land 8, Land Brown, Wasteland Brown, no. Regional World, Cities, definitely didn't grab it from there. Rock Garden, oh, look at that, that's pretty. Not what I'm looking for, but that's pretty. Okay, I've simply lost where it is. It's nowhere to be found. Don't know how it happened, but it did. Okay. So this area a little drier, then forest to the north. So, oh, it's a hotkey. Open catalog. Let's have a look. Topiary trees. Now we want deciduous trees. Yeah, just regular trees, basically. Well, regular for the part of the world I'm in. I shouldn't make sweeping statements like that. If I use a select tool on one of these, will it tell me I've got stamp scale 15 on those? Yeah, 15. Then I'm going to place an area, and I want this forest to be a lot more dense than what I did with the swamplands. Maybe not quite this dense. Yeah, that's good. Over here, all along the pathways, all along this, up here as well, right up to the mountain. Bit further along, but not much more than that. Then turn the density way down, and maybe even turn the area up. They're a little too evenly spaced, I feel like. Get some trees across the rest of the map. Or maybe just along the southern stretch and not so much towards the very, very top. But I'll even delete a few of these. I can move individual trees one by one. I don't know if I want to go too deeply into that. I remember watching years and years ago Nerdcubed playing City Skylines and going down a single road in his entire city and placing each individual bush as he went along. And I don't think I want to let myself get to that, because I do think I'm willing to pay that level of attention to detail, and it will just eat up hours and hours of my life. Okay, might want to play around with the layers at some point, because I noticed some of the trees clipping under behind the roads. So I bring that, yeah, if I bring that to the back, layer 0. Can can I mass select paths? Select all paths. There we go. And bring them all down to layer 0. Lovely. Ah. I love it when you look for something in a program and the program's like, yeah, you can do that exact thing. Here you go. Okay, and then the very southernmost tip. I've been trying to avoid saying southeast, northwest because I know it's the default in a lot of ways, but it's not always assumed that a map will automatically face the top as north. But for my purposes, I am just going to say the top is north. Just to make things easier for myself. Clearing up a few trees because I noticed I'm poking over the edge into the water. Okay, so southernmost tip. I want different forests down here. What type of forest do I go for? We've got pine forests, not really cold enough down there to justify that. We have topiary trees, which are these long, thin ones. Palm trees. Don't think it's hot enough for palm trees either. These little flowers, I mean, they could look close enough to trees if you made them the right scale. Floating islands. Ooh, definitely gonna come back to that later. Floating islands, maybe in that archipelago we've got to the southwest. What else? There's straight up people down here. There's a jungle section, but no jungle trees, unfortunately. We do have a whole nother selection of mountains in different colors. Green overgrown mountains, ice-capped mountains, rocky ones, really pointy ones, volcanoes. Excellent. Craters, mesas, fire, waterfalls, waves and whirlpools, lots of good stuff for detailing. Cliffs. Okay, down here, tree section. Fall trees, snow trees, dead trees, willow trees, very pretty. Bamboo, palms, oaks, maples, cherry blossom, and just big tree. Okay, so I want something different on the south tip, but what do I want and why do I want it? That's what I've got to answer to really make a choice here. Well, I want it because I want to differentiate the south and north tip. So the north tip is very densely forested compared to the rest of the island. You have a whole north section is, and then the north tip is just kind of one part of that. And that kind of represents that it's more wild and untamed to the north here. As I said, we spiral out from the middle, and it gets gradually more dangerous. And the spiral goes this way, so we sweep up the island towards this top bit, which is very dangerous. Oh wait, no, because I said this will be the final area, didn't I? Which means we have to come up the mainland like this, so coming back from that, actually the North Island, and this is on a further out sweep, so if I ride like this is safe, this is more dangerous, this is very dangerous, and stop at the island, this is super dangerous, but then there's people on it? No. Okay. Well, rule number 1 to having rules is they're really more like guidelines. If something doesn't fit into what you're doing, don't stick with it. So instead of a spiral, I'm just going to have a kind of growing area of danger. You can't see me gesture on my screen. I'm pointing at things on the screen here showing you where things go. You can't see that. A growing area circling out from the middle. So we still have the same, this band is fairly safe, this is more wild, then the mountains are very wild. But I am going to say as well, north and south tip, wilder. This island very dangerous, but not as much as the Badlands. Nowhere on this island will be as wild and dangerous as the mainland whatsoever. And this might be a less active kind of danger. Like, there's things here you can go poke that you really shouldn't, but if you don't poke anything, it's fine? Maybe. So to bring that whole thing back to the two fortresses, the North Fortress is just, you know, this is all forests and untamed, so there's all the challenges of surviving in the wilderness. The South Fortress, I want there to be something funky going on. If it's something funky, then I really don't need to restrain myself to any semblance of, oh, this is what makes sense. So my immediate thought is grab something that looks not unnatural, because obviously cherry blossoms are real trees, but something that looks unusual compared to the rest of the map. There really probably shouldn't be a cherry blossom forest randomly down here, but there is. It's probably got something to do with magic. Move a couple of them away from the barren and dry mountain lands, and move that one off of the windmill. There we go. And we can come up with some explanation about whatever magical nonsense is going on over here to cause this to happen. Right, because one fortress up here is there as kind of a way to keep control of this region so far from the center, and a connection to this top bit where there are some interests. This one down here, if it were to keep control of the region, should be this town, because that's what's connected to the mine and to the village, but instead it's all the way over here, so it's to deal with whatever's going on in this place. And this is kind of what I like to do with world building, this kind of emergent, we've got a pattern that we started with, that we're drawing the basic logic from, but then the details change over time, and as we find one thing that fits better, that can inform what else is happening. So I didn't go into this with a plan of there's magic afoot here and that's why there's this fortress, but once I've put down a few villages in random places and then considered, okay, why are these here and why are they connected like this, suddenly we've created a reason for this fortress to be here that was never planned for. And I think that's really useful for world building. I think you can get stuck otherwise trying to come up with reasons and justification for things before you put them down, which is very difficult because you can't kind of in your head keep track of every last little thing in the world and decide beforehand how it all ties together. That's a lot of stuff to keep straight in your head. That's all good for the time being, I think. I am going to grab this ruin from over here, and I'm going to put a couple ruins, I'll resize and fix those in a moment, up on that island. One down here, where there's this convenient open spot of barren land. And one over here in the woods by the mine. There we go. My thought process for there is, there's not really like, I don't have a story off the top of my head for these, but I'm thinking something maybe happened to make this barren. Maybe it wasn't always like this, maybe this magic wasn't always here, and these ruins play into how that happened somehow. This one here, I just kind of felt like this mine was a bit isolated through the woods compared to the other two, so I figured if there's some ruins here of a previous settlement that justified coming all the way out here, The settlement has fallen, but the mine is still there. It's still producing resources, so they've kept it around, and they still use the path. And then up here I just kind of thought, what better way to mark an area as dangerous, and hey, someone used to live here, what happened to them? Why aren't they there anymore? So there's just like 3 ruins dotted across the place. Very nice. And there'll be many more ruins over on this bit of land. They're probably a little smaller, like that. Excuse me, our throat's getting a bit sore. Okay, the mainland. We have a couple of sheep dotted around for where I think other towns could go. How much effort are these people putting into maintaining a presence on the dangerous mainland, really? Are these just a few small villages that happen to pick whatever nice spot was around? I think this one to the north is. I think this one is just a little fishing village that happened to find a reasonably safe alcove, and they just kind of chill here, not really doing much. This one, 2 places close together, maybe at least one of them is a little bigger, but is it town bigger or is it fortress bigger? And I think I'm going to say that it's very... and I'm going to take the same marker I took for the northern island and say it's fortress bigger. So these are like practical fortresses. There's a garrison, they keep order in the area. Whereas this is more of a... someone, you know, important people have interests in these regions, and this is a projection of their power. And similarly, someone wants something on the mainland over here, and this fortress is less of a natural garrison of the influence of a city and more of a concerted effort by individuals and organizations to maintain control here. And this village has just kind of popped up nearby. Maybe people who just wanted to live their lives and happen to draw on the convenient fortress nearby, keeping themselves safe even. Now, ruins. Where would towns and villages have gone on this place beforehand? Bit harder to answer for this section of a map because it's here at the edges. I don't know what the... I don't have any idea for what the terrain beyond the edge of a map looks like, and that would inform what this looks like. I could also draw on some rivers to inform where good spots for cities would be, but I haven't drawn rivers over here, and I'm not going to start now, because then if I draw them here, I'll look at this and I go, why aren't there any rivers over here? Where are they getting their water from? So if I just don't represent the rivers anywhere, I don't have to answer that question. There's always something worth keeping in mind when world building. If you're writing, if you're making a video, if you're making a map, whatever it is, if you don't bring it up and it's not that relevant to anything else you're doing, you don't have to answer it. You know, someone can ask the question, you don't have to give them an answer. Or you can just imply that there is a reason, but it will be brought up later. Whether that's true or not doesn't matter. Okay. I want to use a little bit of a different grass texture, I think, at this point. I think the lighter grass for there is fine, but I want something a little darker for the mainland. And I think this works perfectly fine. Maybe even a bit darker. I should set the opacity back to normal. Let's Control Z, Control Z. There we go. All that along the edge. And on that note of this being a little darker, actually, let's also the archipelago. Let's make that rocky. Slate? Oh, slate is very dark. Slate might be a little too dark. Pale red. Yeah, that's a little better. I did like what I saw for a moment there while I was drawing over that. So if I take this and put the opacity way down again. Feels too strong. 0.2. Yeah, just a little shadow over it. That's nice. And reset that for later. Okay. Now this was the part of the map where we can maybe go a little bit wild. This has mostly been like, okay, people live here, let's put some reasonable stuff down as to why and how they live here. So there's villages, there's farmland and towns and roads and stuff. Here there is ruins and danger, so what kind of wacky stuff can we throw at it, you know? Where do we put the dragons, the orc camps, all that kind of nonsense? There is a dragon somewhere, isn't there? The flying islands. Gotta put some flying islands down, absolutely. Let me select that brush. Maybe a whole band of them? Flying islands stretching across this region and over onto where this is. Yeah, that's good, I think. Maybe not so much over here. Delete some of these. Some of these, yeah, just along the coast, actually. Get rid of that. Move these over a little. There we go. Flying islands along the coast, over this bit of water where we've put the shallow sea, and then over this whole archipelago. With no explanation why. They're just here. One of the ruined cities should go down here, right by the edge of it. That looks good. And now we've got one city placed. Another ruin here, which is where they've built nearby, and that would have been connected to that. Ruin here. Something in between. The villages and stuff that used to be here wouldn't really have left ruins. They'll have been reclaimed by nature very quickly. So only major settlements will have left remains, which means this and this fairly close together. Sure, this one may be a little bit too close. Maybe something more like up here. And then one all the way up here. So they built all along the coast. And then here, and that would have been connected to both of these places. In fact, more like that. So this city connects to this one, connects to this one, connects to this one, and both of these then have a connection here, fairly nearby, further inland, and then further away inland up here. And maybe we have some other ruins I can put down. Oh, Fortress Town, Fortress Castle, Fort. I should have seen these earlier. Military camp. Very useful. Also farmland stuff. I don't want to go into that level of detail on this map of like putting down the individual farms. I've just put windmills to roughly represent them. Also docklands. I'll definitely have to watch some other people making, because I've only seen people make battle maps so far using Inkarnate, and I've seen a few examples of world maps at different scales. I definitely want to see what kind of stuff people have created with all of these tools at a little bit more of a zoomed in detail level. Because it's a little bit incongruous to have like individual people and a campfire next to a whole temple complex and a mountain. But the fact that you can scale everything however you want makes that a lot easier to work with. I do think I probably should have put a little more work into deciding the exact scale of my map earlier on. Because like on a sort of zoomed out level, you can represent farmland, for example, down here, perhaps with a brush. You know, if you pick one that looks close enough to farmland, maybe something patented, maybe something something custom, then you could make that work a lot better. But I didn't think too much about it. Okay, so back to this over here. We have this line of swampland coming down from the north, bordering both the grass or forest over here and bordering the dead badlands at the very northeastern tip. How does that play into the rest of things? City built right next to it. I'm going to assume the swampland was there already when the city was built. What can I infer or come away from with that? And how do I represent it using the tools I've got available? I don't think I'm going to bring any sort of frozen stuff into this. I think we'll stick to the temperate climate. But what kind of funky stuff can we put in here? You'd think after making a whole video on fantasy and fictional geography, I might have a better idea, but nothing is popping to mind immediately. Oh, the art on these is really, really pretty. Okay, so say I want a dragon. And I don't necessarily just want to plonk a dragon down on the map and be like, oh, here be danger. I want specifically, like, this is the spot where the dragon lives. And it doesn't threaten these guys or these guys. So it has to be up in this corner, basically. Like, over where that ruin is. Oops. Has to be over here. I need to put more stuff next to that. Also zoom out a bit, keep in perspective how this map will be viewed when it's all the way zoomed out. Let's put the dragon down in just a single placement. And bring the scale way smaller. Okay, there's our dragon. He's chilling up in the northwest corner. Does he live in a cave? Does he live on a mountain? Do I put mountains onto the mainland? I want to say no. I want to say I want to keep this mountain free. I could put some hills around the place. Probably not like that though. Bigger. Still bigger. This can probably go up here. Not like that. Density of like 80. I do gotta keep in mind each time the density and area toggles. I probably want to be resetting those between brushes. Not going to be mountains in there. Could be this. Delete a few of the ones that are too close to the edge of the water, or shift them around a little. I can't claim to be quite happy with that, but I also couldn't tell you what I want done differently with it. I'll leave it for a few minutes and see if it grows on me. There were different options at the bottom for mountains, right? Like there's green hills, that's a little better for over here. And there's also, yeah, a green mountain, large and small, which I can just make smaller to make them hills. So maybe kind of broken up terrain? Like you have mesas and stuff like that, you know, like in Central America. But instead of desert and dryland mesas, green mesas, we do have cliff tools to make terrain with. That's getting into some really nitty-gritty kind of detail. Right, like the cliffs are basically like this, and it's kind of an optical illusion style thing, where in reality, you know, it's just a PNG overlaid onto the map, but it looks like there's drops downward, if you see what I mean. Move those around a bit, like this. Maybe turn that. That. Yeah, a couple more. Those are a bit too thin. Okay. Or if they use like this, so it's from a perspective where you can't see the cliff downwards. And turn, move that there. So this kind of thing, like piece a few of these together and we've now made essentially like a bowl in the terrain. I don't think I like these ones at the bottom though. I think I'd rather more like this, and then even if it doesn't quite make sense perspective wise. No, it really doesn't work. Is it better like this then? All the way around? I'll have to think about it. So yeah, like this we can build different heights in the terrain. We could even build like a channel like this and draw some water onto it, make a river and a ravine. Let's stay away from that. No rivers, no water. So those are an option. Green hills are an option, and green mountain, which I can of course make a bunch smaller because I don't want a full-on mountain range around here. I think I'll go with the mountains made small and made very sparse. Let's delete... I'll put this off to the side for now, see if I want to do something with it later. Zoom right out, so I can get a good perspective on how this looks. And then mountains. Bring the area up to like 50 and bring the density way down. Right, let's make the area even bigger, for like 75. We are still rotated. Where do I reset that? Here. Okay. Smaller. Okay, area. Smaller. Mountains themselves, much smaller. Yeah, give me like size 10 Rocky Hill. They clash a little with the terrain. They have this kind of deep green color, and it really stands out against the kind of more washed out brown of the grass. Get rid of all the ones southwards. This one. If I just have them to the north, they're so spread out again. Yeah. Difficult decision. Difficult. Thinking about it some more, I do like this kind of basin kind of thing. I don't think it really makes much sense. I don't know what it's supposed to really represent here, besides just there's a indent in the terrain. But I think I'm going to keep it and I'll find something to put into it later. Haven't actually answered the question of where does the dragon live. And it might just be that it lives in the ruins actively. Maybe some treasure pile or something I can put down to show why. A temple or a pyramid. Yeah, then kind of obelisks around the ruin. Ding, ding, ding. In fact, hang on, I've got to... If I make this bigger, drag it over here, not that much bigger, quite a good deal smaller. Yeah, size it to the ruins, and then organize the mountains around it, and some off to the side just so it doesn't look too super focused on that. In fact, give me a few more. Like that. Not that far to the south. Oh, excuse me. My sleep deprivation is catching up with me. And I completely forgot for a moment that I'm on a model and you can totally see me yawn. I was like, if I just stay quiet, they'll never know. Forgetting that I am in fact on screen. Speaking of me being on screen, my model has drifted off to the right while I've been streaming. Let me reset that. There we go. Better. Alright, so yeah, we put the ruin in this indent in the ground, put some obelisks around it and some mountains, and then get a brush. Or desert, make it much smaller, and draw sand in here. And then, like, clearly something funky has happened over here. There's a big crater in the ground. It's filled with sand. There's a ruin with obelisks and a dragon. I don't know what the story here is, but you can tell at a glance that clearly there's a story to be told here. And that's kind of what I want out of this map. A few more of the mountains around. Really bunched them up around the crater. Yeah. Alright, that's filled this part up fairly well. We've still got all this though. There will need to be trees, definitely. There will need to be pretty densely packed trees at that. Might make some of the... Ooh, not that big. Yeah, I might make a few of these just a bit larger. These ones as well. Yeah. Want them to look a little more imposing, want them to fill up a bit more space, so I selected something I didn't want to. That was only the mountains, not the edge of a crater. There we go. Yeah, make that a bit bigger. And then we'll want forests. Probably regular... Oh, so I use the swamp tree still for this as well. I thought I picked... Oops. I thought I had picked regular... Where are they? Here, deciduous trees. You know, those do look a little different, don't they? Okay, quick change. How do I select only swamp trees on this island? So select... If I do select all, it will select everyone, including the ones up here. Can I... If I like select one and shift drag? No, that selects everything. Select one, control drag? No. If I select all this and then... You can select more, but you can't deselect from the selection. If I can... I control click, I could get rid of each object I don't want individually. Whoops. But that's absolutely not viable, not with the amount of objects. Okay, how else to do this? How else do I select? All the swamp trees, but only the ones in this region. Also, all stems from this set. Like all just selects everything, as you might expect. All stamps like this select those specific swamp trees, and I accidentally moved them a bit. Whoops. Select all stamps from this set, and then how do I unselect? Can't control drag when you've got a selection. That just selected more stuff. Okay, off the top of my head, I have no solution to this. I don't know how to specifically select all the swamp trees I have over here and not all of the other stuff. So we'll leave that be for now. and instead grab... I must have accidentally clicked on a swamp tree once I had the other selected, and then it opened back up on what I last hit instead of what I wanted to use. Okay. So, trees, density, area, and that is a lot of trees. Maybe not quite that many. Let's go to like 80% trees. Still quite a lot of trees. 75. Better. On most maps you probably do want that kind of density of trees. But for my purposes right now I like them a little sparser. Okay, like this. And then over here past the ruins, towards like the water, less dense. And then between the hills, less dense again. Yeah, like this. Maybe up to 25. Then we go and remove the remove the handful that have ended up in the crater because they very much shouldn't be there. That is all desert. No, don't move that. Move the tree. Okay. I think some of these things have come out of place. There we go, fix that up. Alright. I wouldn't go as far as to say it looks professional, or even necessarily that it looks pretty. But it looks good enough. For the very first time ever using this, I think it's I think it's a very good effort. I'd say overall Inkarnate is very much looking like a really great tool. I think after my 10-day trial is up, I will probably end up paying for the yearly subscription to keep using this, because this is a great tool. And I mean, there is still so much detail that you could put into this map, right? Like with the objects available, with the like ships and sea creatures and bones, you know, drop a few ships around here and here to indicate that there's sailing happening, maybe around here. Yeah, you can do some real detailing, and with the amount of different asset sets available, you can also make that detailing specific enough to each region to give them a different character. You're not necessarily... Yeah, if you've got a map with 2 different kingdoms, you can pick different visual styles for each one. And of course, you can import your own stuff. So if you've got some tile sets or whatever, and you can buy tile sets for really cheap, or you can get them for free even, depending on where you look, then you'll be able to make some really, really cool stuff. So let me make sure I've got this saved. I think I did just hit save a moment ago. I want to have a quick look at the other map types as well. So turn to my maps, create new one. So that was a fantasy world map. Let's go to a... Wait, was that fantasy world or was that fantasy regional? I've immediately forgotten. Where will it tell me? If anywhere. I don't know how I managed to lose track of that immediately. Oops. Open catalog and it goes to Fantasy Regional, right? So that's what I was using. So return to my maps, create new, Fantasy World. Let's have a look in here. Yeah, so this is what I started off with. I was doing some drawing. Also very pretty looking. Similar-ish catalog with markers in it. And their stamps at size 100 of that. More. Decorations. A few of the same things, but kind of from a side-on view because you're so zoomed out, you're obviously not seeing individual buildings. I think probably, for the scale that I was operating at, even though it's technically a region of a world, at the scale that I was building it, I probably should have been using the world map tools, and it would probably have looked a little better. Brushes, textures. Yeah, I think probably world map would have suited what I was doing there better. Leave, we don't want to save any of that. Then cities. Watercolor cities, watercolor battle maps. Well, there's no other cities options, I guess. Let's go in on that. City map. We're kind of on a cloud, it looks like. Land, and then brushes are... Okay, so that's dirt light we're drawing in. And that's water. Don't think I'm a fan of this particular water texture. I think that looks like cloud or maybe some kind of stone. Not keen on that either. That looks much more like what I would want from water, especially at this scale. And then objects. Yeah, so the city maps are very much top-down, almost grid view. Wheatstones. Smoke, you can come from individual buildings, I guess. Walls, fences. A ghost city. That's neat. Gothic horror. Ruins, special buildings. Winter, if you've got snow on everything. Very nice. Can absolutely see myself losing hours of my life writing over details in that. And then, of course, the big draw, and probably what puts a program like Inkarnate on the map, really. You know, you've got the world-building hobbyists who are using the world-scale map, and then you've got the tabletop RPG players making battle maps like this. Now, a battle map you would want on a grid. I would generally be using hex grid for my own stuff. I would want the tool possibly to go into a square shape. This kind of, if it pokes over the top a bit, you get just one piece of terrain there. That's not great. But actually, I think I can do that, can't I? Shape, rectangle. Okay, no, we're drawing a rectangle there. That's not what I was going for at all. But it works, it works. Add and subtract, so I can hit that. Okay, so I want tunnels like, or straight lines like this. Yeah, that's fairly good. But it's also not snapped to grid. Is that an option? Those outlines of a shape. Those interior of a shape. So you have to pay attention with this tool that you draw it to the grid. Not keen on that. Grid-shaped marker. Go slightly outside of the lines. You probably have to maybe make it a bit smaller so it easier sticks within the lines, like this. Yeah, that's better, that's better. Effect, a few different options. And then... So this is automatically filling in like grass and stuff, and we've got dirt on the outside. And it's just called dirt. Okay, background is outside of thing. Water slash... It still says water slash ocean even though it's not. Foreground land. So in the battle map, background is walls. Foreground is ground. Again, want to change that to be on grid. Some of that is going to be personal taste as well, because you want to decide, you know, do you make a map and then you just overlay the grid on top of it, and that's how you want to make your battle map? Or do you make your battle map that's specifically built as a grid from the get-go? Those are different approaches, and they've got different pros and cons going for them. And then the stamps. You'll thread lots of little details. And this, you know, with a world map I was regularly zooming out because you want to get a view of what the whole thing looks like. With a battle map you're probably going to be way zoomed in for a lot of the time, placing down your individual little props and making them all fit together. You know, you get an easel, make it small enough so it fits on a grid space, and then grab this next to it, put these down. Very, very small detail work. Camp stuff, castle, 4 creatures. Oh, lots of dead creatures. Very sad. Desert, dungeons, tentacles. Excellent. Dwarven, Eastern effects. Okay, fire, light. Ah, and in different shapes. So if you put a lamp on the wall, or whatever, or you've got light coming in through a window, you can show that on the map. Love that. Homestead. And they've got some building blueprints. A stuff. Seems to be the most stamps in here, which again makes sense, I think, because that's probably what's going to sell the most. You're selling to DMs making battle maps, and they're going to love this kind of stuff. I love this kind of stuff, and I don't even really make battle maps or anything like that. Okay. Overall, Inkarnate, really, really cool tool. I like its features. I like what you can do with it. Find it very easy to use. And as someone who's done the occasional bit of creative work and knows that artists are always their own worst critics, I'm not even that horribly disgusted with what I've made here. I'll never claim to be fond of a piece of artwork I've made, but overall I think this was a good effort. And for, what, 2 hours and a bit of work? Really good result. First time using this? Yeah, quite happy with it. I think that's going to be all I do for today. I don't want to spend the entire evening making maps. I'll probably come back to this program at some point when I pick some world building projects that I want to continue on stream. But I've got a few different things that I'm working on, and I think taking one and actually, putting pen to paper, getting some details down, getting some stuff written out, and some maps made for that setting would probably be fun content to stream. So look forward to that. I certainly will be. And thank you for joining me today on my first time using Inkarnate. I hope you enjoyed.